Yes, you will be paying for all of the appliances you fried because you decided during the Royale to hit a Mega Evolved Thunder on top of my house. So, either you'll be buying me a new air fryer, or I'll be turning you into one. I was good, Joe. Sol here, and welcome back to my story mode. So, as I've already stated, and will state a couple more times probably throughout this week, we are officially in post-era for Pokemon Legends ZA, and we are in the midst of waiting for the DLC to release on December 10th. And for the record, for anybody that's even more interested in my full thoughts in regards to the battle system here, I did put out my full review recently for Pokemon Legends ZA. So if you guys would do me the greatest favor of checking that out and running that up, I would greatly appreciate it, and I would definitely find a way to get back to you. But I would very much appreciate it if you guys were to check that out for me. But during that wait, there are a good couple of things that I would really like to converse with you guys about. If it wasn't clear based on the title, one of those very things is the new combat system. If you've seen pretty much anything on my channel this last year, you would know that from the get-go, I was always absolutely ecstatic over the idea of real-time combat in Pokemon. Hell, just a couple of months prior to the game getting revealed, I made a video titled, "Would real-time combat work in modern Pokemon?" And as somebody that's played the game twice, while the game definitely has a lot of issues, the presence of real-time combat certainly is not one of them. Not to say that it's perfect or anything, it could absolutely use some improvement in a couple of arenas, but for the most part, I think that it's a solid idea, a solid concept that I would really like to stick around. During the come-up of Pokemon Legends ZA, there were a lot of people that were completely turned away from the concept of real-time combat in Pokemon, and that's fine, I completely understand where they're coming from. In the case of Legends Arceus, at the very least, it wasn't such a heavy shift that it wasn't unfamiliar. Legends ZA kind of is. And I say kind of with a grain of salt. I mean, it's still very much just Pokemon, just a little faster if we're being real. Anyway, a lot of people were generally under the impression that this is what Pokemon was going to be like from now on, and they got angry and upset and scared. The turn-based combat that Pokemon has established over the last 30 years now is not going anywhere. I guarantee it. And eventually, hopefully, everybody will come to understand that Legends is an experimental, sister series to the mainline generational games. They are still mainline titles, they're just free to do whatever they want. Which is precisely why they were able to try something like real-time combat. And that is something that I would really like the Legends series to continue with from now on. So I think we've done just about enough setup. So why don't you go ahead, sit down, grab a nice cool glass of water. It's about lunchtime around now, so go ahead, get your corn dogs and get your dipping raspberries ready while we talk about why I think that Pokemon Legends as a series needs to continue utilizing real-time combat. My first reason being, I feel like not only does it differentiate it from the generational titles, but it's also naturally a lot more engaging. I really do believe that after ZA, Legends titles are really gonna start stepping into their own a lot more going forward. And what better way to do that other than developing its own unique style? There are a lot of people that I have grown up with that are simply tired or not interested in turn-based combat like that. But when they heard that Legends ZA had real-time combat, all of a sudden their tune changed a little bit. And I feel like the reason for that is because real-time combat is naturally a little bit more engaging. This is not me slamming turn-based combat, by the way. I love turn-based combat. However, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, we are living in a very impatient age of people that want to get to the point, and action-style combat gets to the point a lot faster than turn-based. It's just a fact. You're not sitting there expected to strategize all of your movements turn after turn after turn. Instead, you have to be on your feet, constantly moving around, throwing out attacks that will actually deal damage to your opponent so that you can kill them faster than they can kill you. This is the general case for all real-time combat, so applying that to Pokemon makes it a different world. Throughout my entire life, I've heard plenty of people say, I wish the games played a lot more like the anime, where you could actually call out moves in real time, have them dodging and stuff like that. This is the closest we have ever been to that. Having to attack and defend with precision in real time is a lot scarier, which means you are on your toes and paying a lot more attention than you usually would. Say you're getting into an argument over Discord. You and the other person are going back and forth. but you have a lot more time to think your next response. You could be a little bit more clever. And frankly, you could just walk away, go make a sandwich, take a little brain break, because there's no rush. That is turn-based combat. Now, imagine they bust into your house at 3 AM, bats and knives at the ready. Now you can't just simply walk away from it. You gotta pay attention to everything around you. You need to know what your options are. If they're attacking, you gotta know how to dodge, where to dodge, when you can dodge. And if you can retaliate accordingly, you could get some good hits in. That is real-time combat. Like I said, naturally, just a little bit more engaging than turn-based. So for the people that are a little less interested in the slower paced, heavily strategizing style of turn-based, they have another option here. I love all styles of RPGs, turn-based included. However, action-style combat is where I live. That's kind of where I thrive. So, of course I was more drawn to this, and I feel like that was the case for a lot of people. But it's good that it's in Legends specifically, because now the generational titles, Generation 10 and beyond, can focus more on perfecting the turn-based style. Next to that, it creates a really solid flow of gameplay. I think in this case specifically, they did a really good job of speedily getting us in and out of battle. Within mere seconds, me and the opponent's Pokemon were out battling, and I was probably done with that battle within less than a minute. And because of that, it made it a lot easier for me to get right to my next task, immediately to my next battle. Even during the post game, I was in and out of battle so quickly that I was racking up challengers tickets like no tomorrow. It was easy to do something like that because the gameplay flow was really good. Even now, after I've done practically everything I can in this game, if I really wanted to go crazy and competitive and build up some Pokemon, I wouldn't mind grinding out the ZA Royale for some more money so that I could get some more equipment, because again, the gameplay flow is quick and fun. As much as I would love for them to implement like point-based style progression in the generational titles, again, I feel like it simply would not have as good as a flow as it does here. Imagine if we had a ZA Royale style gameplay loop, but instead it was turn-based back in like Scarlet and Violet or something. Yeah, sure, maybe we get our abilities back and maybe we're able to strategize a little bit better, but at the sacrifice of that speed, of that quickness, of that in and out flow, I feel like it wouldn't work nearly as well. Ironically though, at the same time, I don't think that the gym style progression would work really well with real-time combat. As neat as it is in concept, if you were to implement this style in like Scarlet and Violet, we'd be through that game in like 3 to 4 hours probably. Okay, probably a little more than that, but you get what I'm getting at here. My point here is that the Legends titles have much more freedom to create around this style of battle. And as long as they continue to create situations like the ZA Royale that give us a reason to constantly be in and out of battle like that, we're looking at really good gameplay flows throughout the entire course of the Legends series. Or, you know, at the very least, it has the potential to be like that, so we'll have to see what happens. The next thing that I think is really important is the fact that with this style of gameplay, people learn moves and typings much more immediately, and I feel like that will stick a lot better going forward. The way that they teach new players, while a tad excessive, don't get me wrong, it's still very solid. Especially when you realize that that speedy flow combined with the battle cards that make it so that you're constantly differentiating your team so that you could use certain moves for super effective moves or for certain typed moves to get more points is genuinely brilliant. As somebody that's grown up with Pokemon and has been playing it my entire life, I good and well know the type matchups by heart at this point. But for somebody that isn't nearly as familiar with these titles and they don't really know their types all that well, especially after 6th gen introducing fairy types, that could definitely help out a lot. I could definitely see a situation in which somebody is utilizing the battle cards so that they can rack up points as fast as possible, but by the time that they hit post-game, they've already learned a lot of the type matchups so well by now that they aren't even thinking about it anymore when they sneak up on a trainer. It's just such a good course of like learning and development about Pokemon that I didn't even think about that until writing the script. It's because it's so subtle and gradual that you don't even think about something like that. So now, going forward into future Pokemon games, whether they want to try the generational titles or future Legends games, they have a better idea of type matchups that will stick with them. I'm just saying, they kind of cooked with that one. And lastly, I really feel like this style helps emphasize how scary and cool other trainers can be. I really do pray to Shanks that they continue utilizing these trainers like this in the generational titles as well as Legends going forward, because this is the best I think they've ever been utilized, period. They're actively wandering around, hungry for battle, just waiting for you to show up. I got such whiplash from this because we're coming so hot off of Scarlet and Violet, where I didn't even interact with the trainers throughout a majority of the game, and now we are sneaking up on them and getting snuck up on by them. So yeah, this is definitely a big juxtaposition, but one that I am absolutely fond of. And on top of everything, after we battle them, there's a good chance that they give us items and prizes and stuff. Yeah, absolutely, I don't mind battling a bunch of trainers back to back. We're gonna talk about this a lot in future videos, so I won't harp on it too much right now. But having trainers operate the way that they operate in a setting like this one works out way better than I ever imagined it would. But Soul, why in the world do you want to keep it locked into Pokemon Legends titles? Why can't we move it to the mainline generational titles as well? It could work really well there and attract a lot more people and players. Oh my god, I haven't done Nerd Voice in months, dude. That took the wind out of me. But I'm glad you asked, Guy, because there's actually two very specific reasons as to why we need to keep turn-based combat in the generational titles. Or I guess rather, why it's never leaving those titles. Firstly, because it is way too well established and rooted in Pokemon history to be moved literally anywhere. The only reason we were even able to do something like Legends EA, like branch out into a new style of combat, is because of the mechanics that were built up from turn-based all these years. It's also the best way that we can safely and smoothly integrate new mechanics and ideas that we can utilize for other titles like Legends series and like spin-off titles. Imagine if the next Legends game introduced an entirely new typing. It would feel too rushed, it wouldn't feel proper, and we wouldn't get a good sense of it or understanding of it that way. Having it introduced in a traditional title allows us to go slow, take our time, learn the ins and outs, go in depth about everything that it has to offer while having access to everything that we usually know, with abilities, with held items, and potentially with a brand new mechanic that would probably help emphasize that new typing or whatever else they introduce. Not to say that it would be impossible to introduce something new inside of a Legends game, but because it's already doing a lot of new things, experimenting with what we already know, I feel like introducing new stuff going forward that we aren't already familiar with would be way too much and way too overwhelming, especially for newer players that are still just working on learning the game for themselves. So that would already be too much. And next to that, again, it's not going anywhere because we already have a very well established competitive scene dedicated to the turn-based operation. Mind you, something like Pokemon Champions has to be turn-based. It has to be turn-based because it's going to be one of the primary competitive Pokemon options that we're going to have going forward. Every new traditional title is probably going to introduce some new crazy typing or mechanic that's going to change the game just enough for us to learn it in that game and really experiment with it while we're there, and even take that into competitive scenes. However, those concepts will eventually get so well known that we can move it into something like Champions, where it will already be well established, we'll already know it in and out, and we'll be able to toss that knowledge into a bigger pool of options when we're battling. When it comes to Legends titles, I don't think we'll ever be able to truly see a competitive scene with something like these because, again, they're fully experimental. They are just to try new things that the traditional games are not allowed to do. There's still obvious rules and limitations to what they can do, but what they will do is continue to take the knowledge that we have of Pokemon and flip it on its head, essentially. And this is already kind of bleeding into my next point, but it's simply the fact that turn-based is way more accessible to everyone. The slower paced, more strategical type of combat makes it so that almost anybody can safely try it without getting or feeling overwhelmed. As somebody that has grown up on platformers and action RPGs and just generally faster moving games, I still love turn-based combat because it gives me a slower and more comfortable place to learn and to understand. All of the other genres that I mentioned are generally a lot less forgiving. For the record, this is me speaking like super generally from the perspective of like newer game players. Just like any other skill in life, the more you play the game, the more you will learn and the better you will eventually get at it. But nothing, even in the entirety of the RPG genre, is more simplified than plain old turn-based Pokemon. People do not want to lose something like that. This is what they have grown up on. This is what they have been playing their entire lives. This is not something that they simply want to disappear just because the series wants to try something new. And that's a totally fine concern. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. And I think that Legends can continue to do its own thing, experimenting with this style of combat going forward, while the traditional games do exactly what they've been doing, but improving and perfecting that. So business as usual. So I'm sure there's also a couple of you wondering, okay, well, if we're gonna continue utilizing this style of combat, is there any way that it can improve? Especially because a lot of people feel like the combat introduced in this game felt a little off, a little clunky. I don't know what they mean by that. I mean, granted, of course it's not perfect. The AI can be a little weird sometimes, but I felt clunky. This doesn't feel clunky. You know, I wouldn't say it's 100% polished, but I wouldn't put it near clunky, I don't think. Like, sure, it's a little awkward when your Pokemon, like a Charizard or a Dragonite or whoever, is flying right in front of the camera and it doesn't feel good, or maybe the camera work can be a little strange sometimes, especially in the midst of battle when you're trying to see the entire arena or wherever you guys are battling. But I feel like calling it clunky feels a little excessive, especially when, for the most part, it feels like most of the controls are generally really responsive. For a first attempt though, overall, I feel like they did a pretty good job. I think that the AI could absolutely use some polishing up so that a Pokemon doesn't just simply get stuck on a wall and they just kind of run in place or whatever, or like the aiming can be weird sometimes and they can fix that up. But other than that, I don't know, it could definitely use some touch-ups in that general department. But overall, as far as developing it for future titles, I feel like if they were to really lean into the action RPG aspect, we could see some really cool and cinematic Pokemon like we have never seen before from these games. Like, what if we added something like clashes? What if somebody's coming at me with a fire punch, I'm coming at them with a thunder punch or a dragon claw or something like that, and they have something of a trade that actually has something of an animation and stuff like that? What if we had certain moves like detect that could actually parry, you know what I'm saying? And it gives us time in between, as opposed to waiting for the animation to cool down. We actually have it so that it blocks the move, but because I timed it properly, I can get a move off much quicker, and we see actual genuine animation that emphasizes that. Maybe like a genuine dedicated dodge command that has like a super hefty cooldown, and you only utilize that as a last resort if your other moves are cooling down, like dig or fly, that you can't use to avoid a move otherwise. I would really have to sit down and dedicate a full script to this one because I feel like there is potential. I just don't know what it could be yet, but I'm sure that you guys will tell me plenty down there, because I'm sure that there's plenty of ways that we could improve on this mechanic so that we could make it feel more proper, more at home, and make it more fun and more just epic, possibly, if that's possible. For the most part, I think that just about sums up my thoughts on this matter specifically, because I really enjoyed what ZA gave to us with real-time combat, and I think they could definitely improve, get better, and we could see a really fleshed out version of these mechanics in future titles. And I'm really, really excited for that day. But hey, you know what? Maybe that's just me. So that just about wraps it up for this one here. I really like real-time combat in Legends. It was a lot of fun, and I don't know what to tell you, gang. It's good. It's really good. I think that's definitely one of the lesser problems that people seem to have with this game for the most part. I could be wrong though. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that definitely had something other to say in regards to that, but I guess we'll get there when we get, or I'm sure you guys will tell me about it. So actually, as a matter of fact, I've said enough. I've said my piece. I'm passing the mic over in your direction. I want you guys to tell me everything that you're thinking in the comment section below. Do you agree that Legends should keep real-time combat going forward. We could definitely improve on these mechanics. We could see something really, really special going forward if we were to continue with this and we were to allow the traditional games to keep turn-based combat. Or do you disagree for whatever reason? Do you feel like maybe real-time combat should be in the mainline titles or mainline generational titles? Or do you feel like we should have just kept turn-based combat in the Legends games but found other ways to experiment? Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I'm always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do exactly that. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!